Throughout history, certain names have been whispered with fear. Certain stories passed down as warnings. While we often hear about history's most dangerous men, today we're uncovering the blood-soaked stories of women, or groups of women whose actions were so terrifying, so calculated, and so deadly that they've earned their place among history's most feared. Before we begin this dark journey, be warned. What you're about to hear contains graphic descriptions of violence, torture, and death. These aren't fictional horror stories. These are the true accounts of real women who left trails of blood across the pages of history. Hit subscribe and the notification bell now, because this is just the first in our series exploring history's most chilling true stories. 3. The Night Witches, Stalin's deadly female flyers. That sudden silence was the last thing many Nazi soldiers heard before bombs rained down on them from the night sky. The silence and their fear is why they called them Nachhexen, Night Witches. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment of the Soviet Air Forces wasn't just any military unit. It was the world's first all-female combat aviation regiment. Formed in 1941 after the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union, these women volunteers, most between 17 and 26 years old, became one of the most feared Soviet forces on the Eastern Front. Marina Ryskova, known as the Soviet Amelia Earhart, convinced Stalin to form female aviation units as the Soviets desperately needed pilots. The women were given cast-off equipment, including obsolete Polikarpov Po-2 biplane slow, wooden aircraft originally designed as crop dusters. But what seemed like a disadvantage became their strength. These plywood and canvas planes could fly slower than the stall speed of Nazi fighters, making them nearly impossible to shoot down. The Night Witches turned their outdated aircraft into one of the deadliest weapons on the Eastern Front through a technique that terrorized German forces. Flying only at night, they would approach their targets, cut their engines, and glide silently to their bomb release points. All the Germans would hear was a soft, whooshing sound, like a witch's broomstick, before explosions tore through their camps. According to military records, German command was so frightened by these women that any German pilot who shot down a night witch was automatically awarded the Iron Cross Medal. The Nazis were particularly disturbed to be attacked and defeated by women, whom they considered inferior. The Night Witches flew over 30,000 missions and dropped more than 23,000 tons of bombs on Nazi targets. Each pilot flew 8 to 18 missions per night in freezing open cockpits, navigating by paper maps and compasses. Their most famous pilot, Nadezhda Popova, flew 852 missions. After her brother was killed by Germans, she showed no mercy, saying in a post-war interview, "I sometimes stared in the faces of the German pilots I killed. I didn't feel sorry for them. They were fascists. They deserved it." By the end of the war, 30 Night Witches had died in combat. 23 were awarded the Soviet Union's highest honor, Hero of the Soviet Union. Yet after the war, their achievements were largely forgotten as the Soviet Union downplayed women's war contributions. 4. Ilse Koch, the Beast of Buchenwald. Some atrocities are so horrific that they seem beyond human capability. Yet during the Holocaust, Ilse Koch proved that sometimes human cruelty has no limits. Born in 1906 in Dresden, Germany, Ilse Kohler was a secretary before joining the Nazi Party in 1932. In 1936, she married Karl Koch, the commandant of Buchenwald concentration camp, and moved into a house on the campgrounds. What happened next earned her the nicknames the Beast of Buchenwald and the Witch of Buchenwald. According to survivor testimonies, Ilse would ride through the camp on horseback, wearing tight-fitting clothes, carrying a whip with a hard leather ball on the end. Any prisoner who looked at her or who simply caught her attention would be savagely whipped. Some were whipped to death for the slightest glance in her direction. But what truly made Koch infamous was her fascination with tattooed human skin. Witnesses testified that she would inspect incoming prisoners. Those with interesting tattoos would be sent to the camp doctor, who would kill them by injection, then carefully remove their tattooed skin. These skin sections were processed into household items, lampshades, book covers, gloves, and handbags for Koch's personal collection. SS Dr. Eric Wagner, who performed many of these gruesome procedures, kept detailed records of the tattoos collected, cataloging them like art pieces. Some reports indicated that Koch specifically sought prisoners with colorful or exotic tattoos for her collection. When American forces liberated Buchenwald in 1945, they discovered physical evidence of these atrocities. General Dwight D. Eisenhower ordered all citizens from nearby towns to tour the camp and witness firsthand the horrors that had occurred. After the war, Koch was tried at the Nuremberg trials. Despite her husband being sentenced to death for other crimes, she was acquitted due to lack of evidence. The human skin items had disappeared. This caused such outrage that American authorities tried her again, sentencing her to life imprisonment. Transferred to a German prison in 1949, Koch never showed remorse. She maintained her innocence until 1967, when she committed suicide in her cell, taking the full truth of her atrocities to her grave.